The cries were louder than gunfire. The river carried the sound in waves that cut through the night. I could still hear them, Daniel and Moses, screaming for help as the snakes wrapped around their bodies. The water splashed, their rifles went under, and their voices turned to gurgles. I wanted to pull the trigger. I wanted to fire into the river, but my hands were frozen. I had a gun, I had bullets, but fear held me tighter than the snakes held them. My chest burned, my breath grew short, and my legs moved on their own. I ran with Samuel and David, leaving Daniel and Moses to die. The worst part is not that they died. The worst part is that I saw their faces when we fled into the forest. They were not alive anymore. They were pale, dripping, their uniforms torn. Their eyes were red with blood, and their mouths kept moving, asking the same question over and over. Why did you leave us? We were 5 brothers in uniform, 5 Nigerian soldiers sent to abort a mission. We promised one another we would never leave anyone behind. We shared meals, shared cigarettes, even shared laughter about how we would all go back home and boast to our wives about surviving the mission. But promises mean nothing when death is standing in front of you. It began when the general told us to cross the river before dawn. The river was wide, dark, and smelled of rotten leaves. The mist was thick, and we could not see the other side. The water reached our waists, and our boots grew heavy. Daniel was the first to whisper, "This river is cursed." None of us replied. We just moved forward, rifles high, radios wrapped in plastic. Then the water started moving, not like a current, but like something alive was stirring underneath. The snakes came from nowhere, long, thick, and black. Their bodies shimmered under the moonlight. They wrapped around Daniel and Moses so fast that even the splash of the water was swallowed by the night. Daniel's scream cut through me like a blade. Moses tried to fight, hitting the snakes with his rifle, but more kept coming. The sound of their bodies sliding in the water was worse than any horror I had seen in war. We could have shot. We could have done something, but my finger would not move. Samuel dropped his gun. David shouted, "Run!" And before I knew it, my legs were pounding against the wet ground. The forest swallowed us, but the screams did not stop. They followed. The forest was not safety. It was silence broken by whispers that had no source. We stopped running only when our lungs could not take more. I bent over, hands on my knees, trying not to vomit. That was when I heard it. A voice. Daniel's voice. "Help me." I lifted my head. There he was. Daniel standing under a tree, soaked, eyes wide, chest rising and falling like he had just come out of the water. Moses appeared beside him, his lips trembling, blood running down his chin. They looked straight at us. Samuel cried out and fell backward. David shook his head, whispering prayers that didn't sound like words anymore. I wanted to call the general. I pulled out the radio, pressed the button, but nothing, only static. My phone had no signal. The forest was closing in on us, the shadows thickening, and the ghosts were walking closer. I wanted to scream, but the sound died in my throat. Their eyes were not just angry, they were broken. We had betrayed them. That was the beginning of the haunting. That was the night the 3 of us realized death is not the only punishment in war. Sometimes the dead keep walking with you, reminding you of your weakness, until you start wishing you had died with them. The haunting never stopped after that night. Samuel, David, and I tried to pretend it was all in our heads. We told ourselves it was shock, that maybe we were hallucinating because of the river, the fear, the silence of the forest. But ghosts don't go away when you close your eyes. They follow you. Every step deeper into the forest, we felt their presence. The branches above us cracked, though no wind blew. The ground beneath us pulsed like something breathing. And then the voices. "Brother, why did you run?" That was Daniel's. "We trusted you," Moses added. We fired our rifles into the dark, thinking maybe it was enemies, maybe it was soldiers from the other side playing tricks. But the bullets only echoed back, louder than before. When the smoke cleared, their faces were still there, pale and wet, walking between the trees. We couldn't eat, we couldn't drink. Samuel tried to run ahead one morning, saying he wanted to find a way out. We found him hours later, sitting against a tree, eyes wide open, staring at nothing. He was still breathing, but his mind was gone. He kept repeating, "The snakes are in my skin. They are in my skin." He died that night, his body cold before we could even cover him. David and I dragged his body and left it under the trees. We couldn't bury him. The ground was too hard, and we were too weak. Leaving him there broke me even more. First Daniel and Moses, now Samuel. It was like the forest was swallowing us one by one. David began talking less after that. He hardly blinked, hardly moved. His face was pale, like he was already halfway gone. On the third night, he woke me up screaming. He said Moses was standing over him, touching his chest with cold hands. I tried to calm him down, but he pushed me away and ran into the forest. I chased after him, shouting his name, but the only thing I heard was his scream fading, then silence. I never saw him again. I was alone, alone with the ghosts. I tried the radio again. Nothing. I tried the phone again. Still nothing. My body was weak, my head heavy. I knew I would not make it out of that forest alive. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, Daniel and Moses, holding out their hands, asking me to join them. I could not refuse, not anymore. When the rescue team finally found us weeks later, there was nothing left of me to save. My body was lying on the ground, but my soul had long left. They said my eyes were wide open, staring into the sky, mouth twisted like I had died screaming. Back in the city, the wives of the 5 of us gathered when the news came. Daniel's wife fainted. Moses' wife tore her wrapper and fell on the ground. Samuel's wife held her baby close and cried until her voice broke. David's wife refused to believe it, asking every officer who came if there was a mistake. And my wife, she sat still, tears rolling down her face, not moving, not speaking. 5 homes broken, 5 women left in sorrow, 5 children who would grow without their fathers. We went to war thinking we would return as heroes. Instead, we returned as ghosts. And the saddest part, the part that will never leave me even in death, is that we were not killed by bullets, not killed by enemies, but by fear, betrayal, and the torment of knowing we abandoned our brothers when they needed us most. That is how we died.